You figured it out on your own again, didn't you? Spent 3 hours on something that would have taken 20 minutes if you'd just asked someone. And when you finally got it, there was this weird relief, not just because the problem was solved, but because you didn't need anyone to solve it for you. That's not self-sufficiency. That's something else entirely. And it's quietly costing you more than you know. Here's what nobody says out loud. There's a whole generation of people who are genuinely, deeply terrified of needing other people. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way they'd ever admit at a dinner table. It shows up in small moments, the way you'll Google something 47 times before texting a friend who could answer in 30 seconds. The way you say, "I'm fine," before anyone even asks. The way you feel a flash of something, embarrassment maybe, or something closer to shame. The moment you realize you might have to say the words, "I need help." This isn't a personality quirk, it's a pattern, and it has a name, a history, and a set of causes that explain exactly why you are the way you are, and why it makes total sense, even though it's making your life harder. So let's start with what this actually looks like in practice. Because the word hyper-independent sounds clinical and distant, and what you're living is neither of those things. You're the person who insists on moving by yourself, renting the U-Haul, packing the boxes, doing the whole thing in one day, even though you have people who've offered to help. You're the one who handles a medical scare alone for 2 weeks before mentioning it to anyone close to you. You overfunction at work, pick up the slack for your team, never delegate, never ask your manager for clarity on something, because that would mean admitting you don't already know. You've probably been called low maintenance like it's a compliment, and somewhere, quietly, you started to believe it was. But low maintenance has a shadow side. Low maintenance often means I learned very early that my needs were inconvenient. Because here's the thing, nobody is born like this. Nobody comes out of the womb with a fully formed fear of interdependence. This gets built. Slowly, over years, through specific experiences that taught you a very specific lesson. When I need something from other people, something bad happens. Or nothing happens, which is sometimes worse. Maybe it was a parent who was emotionally unavailable, not absent necessarily, but just not there in the way you needed. You asked for help with something and they were distracted or annoyed, or they turned it into a lesson about doing things yourself. So you stopped asking. Because the emotional cost of asking, the bracing, the half rejection, the having to explain yourself, was higher than just handling it alone. Maybe it was inconsistency. A parent who was warm and responsive some days and completely unreachable others. John Bowlby, the British psychiatrist who spent decades studying how early attachment shapes adult behavior, found that this inconsistency is often more destabilizing than consistent unavailability. When a child can't predict whether help is coming, they stop waiting for it. They develop what attachment researchers call an avoidant attachment style, a learned pattern of emotional self-containment that says, I only count on myself. And that pattern follows you, right into your adult relationships, your work life, your approach to problems that you're white-knuckling your way through alone. Bessel van der Kolk, in The Body Keeps the Score, describes something that cuts right to the center of this. He says that when a child's bids for connection are repeatedly unmet, when they reach out and nobody comes, or when the response is unpredictable, the nervous system adapts. It learns to self-regulate in isolation. The child internalizes the lesson that other people are not a reliable resource. And here's the part that matters, that adaptation becomes automatic. It moves below conscious thought. You don't decide not to ask for help. Your nervous system just steers you away from it before the thought even fully forms. This is why willpower doesn't fix it. You can tell yourself, I should ask for help more 100 times, and it won't change anything, because the thing that's stopping you isn't a decision. It's a deeply wired survival response. And here's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't only about family dynamics. There's a cultural layer on top of all of this. and it's one that almost nobody talks about. American culture has been selling self-reliance as a virtue for a very long time. The mythology of the self-made person runs through everything: movies, advertising, the stories families tell about themselves at Thanksgiving. He built that company from nothing. She put herself through school. We didn't ask anybody for anything. These stories get told with unmistakable pride. Needing help in this cultural story is a flaw. It means you haven't worked hard enough or gotten strong enough or smart enough. Brené Brown, who has spent years researching shame and vulnerability at the University of Houston, found something that directly challenges this. Her research showed that the people with the strongest relationships and the highest reported well-being were not the ones who needed the least. They were the ones who had the highest tolerance for vulnerability. Meaning, they could ask. They could say, "I don't know," or "I need support," or "Can you help me with this?" without it feeling like an emergency. The people who struggled most, the ones with the most loneliness and the most chronic stress, were the ones who had weaponized self-sufficiency, who had decided somewhere along the way that needing people was the same thing as being weak. And Millennials and Gen Z have walked directly into a perfect storm for this. Think about the specific pressures this generation grew up under. The 2008 financial crisis hit when a lot of them were in high school or early adulthood. That first moment of watching the adults you expected to have answers completely lose the plot. Then comes the gig economy, which structured work itself around individual contractors with no safety net, no team, no loyalty expected in either direction. Social media layered on top of that a performance of capability. Every LinkedIn post, every Instagram story, quietly broadcasting, "I'm doing fine. I'm doing great, actually." Asking for help doesn't fit the brand. Dr. Jean Twenge, a psychology professor at San Diego State University, who has tracked generational mental health trends for decades, found significant increases in anxiety, loneliness, and what she calls emotional self-reliance as a coping strategy, particularly among people who came of age online. The digital environment creates this strange paradox. You are technically more connected than any generation in history, and simultaneously more practiced at not actually needing anyone. You have 1,000 followers and no one you'd call at 2 a.m. Now here's the part that should make something click. The reason hyperindependence feels like strength, the reason it's so hard to let go of, is because it worked. At some point in your life, it genuinely protected you. When help wasn't reliable, not needing it was the rational move. When showing weakness had costs, hiding it was smart. Your nervous system learned a strategy that made sense given the information it had at the time. The problem is that the information has changed. You're not a kid anymore, operating in a household where help was unreliable or unavailable. You're an adult, probably with people around you who would actually show up, but your nervous system is still running the old strategy. It's still managing a threat that isn't there anymore. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who wrote Flow, made an observation that applies here in a way he probably didn't intend. Optimal human experience, what he called flow states of full engagement and meaning, almost always involves a calibrated challenge to skill ratio. Too easy and you're bored, too hard and you're anxious. The same logic applies to connection. Total dependence is destabilizing. But complete isolation is not strength. It's a different kind of collapse. Humans are genuinely built for interdependence. That's not a soft, feel-good sentiment. It's structural. The social baseline hypothesis, developed by researchers John Cacioppo and Stephanie Cacciopone, shows that the human nervous system uses social connection as a literal regulatory mechanism. Other people calm our cortisol. Other people help us process and down-regulate stress in ways we simply cannot replicate alone. When you wall that off as a strategy, you're taking away one of your nervous system's primary tools. So what actually changes when you understand all of this? Not a to-do list, not a set of steps. Something more useful than that. The shift is in how you interpret the discomfort. The next time you're in a situation where you need something from someone, help, support, information, presence, and you feel that familiar resistance, that instinct to just handle it yourself, you now know what that feeling actually is. It's not wisdom. It's not discernment. It's an old alarm system going off in a building that's not on fire. You don't have to override it with force. You don't have to shame yourself into asking for help, but you can get curious about it. You can notice that the tightening in your chest when you're about to say, "I need help," is a nervous system response, not a prophecy. It's your body anticipating a rejection that may not come, running a prediction based on old data. The research on this is clear, and I mean longitudinal, replication level clear. People who allow themselves to receive help report higher relationship satisfaction, lower rates of burnout, and significantly better outcomes when facing hard things. Not because they're weaker, because they're more accurate. They have a more honest picture of how humans actually function. Asking for help isn't a character flaw that you've been politely tolerating. It's a sign that you know something true. No person is actually built to do this alone. The ones who insist otherwise aren't stronger. They're just running older software. You didn't choose to become someone who couldn't receive help. That was taught. And anything that was learned can slowly and imperfectly be unlearned. Not by trying harder, but by understanding what's actually happening. And maybe, just maybe, giving yourself permission to let someone in. If this landed for you, subscribe. There's more of this every week.